You and your allies have vested interests in my extradition matter, while other extradition cases involving organized crime, narco-trafficking, Italian mafia figures, and other matters dragging on for years receive no public commentary from you, Anil, nor Jagdiyo.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are jumping straight into a really high-stakes legal and political fight that's unfolding in Guyana.
And it's a conflict that really shows you just how tightly local issues can get tangled up with, major international law.
Absolutely. On the surface, this is about the sale of just 11 cars. But when you dig in, it is so much more.
It really is. It's a clash between a very prominent businessman who's already facing some serious allegations. We're talking gold smuggling, billions in tax evasion, and a government that he accuses of, systematic political persecution.
And that's the core tension we're going to unpack. Our sources for this are fantastic because they're direct, contrasting statements from the two players. Businessman Azrudin Mohamed on one side.
And Attorney General Anil Nandlall on the other. It's a classic he said situation.
It really is. One side is screaming abuse of power, and the other is just saying, look, we're enforcing the law under the massive pressure of U.S. sanctions.
Exactly. So is this Mohamed being punished for exposing corruption like he claims? Or is this just the inevitable crushing fallout from international financial regulations?
That's the mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
To really isolate the specific claims and the evidence each side is putting forward. So let's start with the flashpoint, the thing that kicked this all off.
Those 11 vehicle transfers.
In late 2025.
Right. And the timing itself was, a bit of a red flag for the authorities. The transfers happened really fast, between November 27th and December 5th.
So just over a week.
A little over a week. And the GRA, the Guyana Revenue Authority, they jumped on it immediately. They announced a full investigation.
And they weren't just looking at like a paperwork error, were they?
Oh, not at all. They stated the transfers were a clear breach of motor vehicle regulations, but, and this is the crucial part, they also alleged it was in contravention of anti-money laundering regulations.
Okay, so that just elevates things to a whole new level. That's a serious financial crime allegation.
A very serious one. But Mohamed, he didn't just sit back and take it.
No, he came out swinging. He called the GRA's actions bizarre and basically dared them. He said, show me the specific law I broke.
And his counter-narrative, his PR move, it starts immediately. He tries to dismantle this idea that he was secretly selling off, a fleet of luxury supercars.
Right. He was very specific. He said these were not his high-end vehicles, not his Lamborghini.
No, he described them as third-hand vehicles, some of which have been registered in Guyana for 12 years.
He even listed some of them. A Toyota Allion, a Fielder, a Crown. I mean, these are common older cars. You're not exactly smuggling gold in a 12-year-old Toyota Fielder.
Precisely. It's a calculated move. He's framing these as mundane sales of aging assets, which sort of begs the question, why sell them at all?
And that's where he says the government forced his hand.
And that moves us right into his central defense. This narrative of political persecution.
He called the entire investigation yet another escalation in the sustained campaign of persecution against me and my family.
And he claims the motive is revenge. Revenge for him being an outspoken critic of the government.
He gets really specific here, too. He claims it's because of his exposure of corruption within the present government.
Yes, and he throws this huge political grenade into the mix. He says he recently uncovered devastating evidence implicating sitting ministers who've amassed extraordinary and unexplained wealth in just the last 5 years.
And he didn't stop there. He also alleged that many of these same ministers had asked him for money or favors before they got into office.
I mean, that claim alone is just politically radioactive in any country. You're saying powerful people have mysterious new wealth and that they used to hit you up for cash.
It's a narrative that, if people believe it, fundamentally challenges the government's legitimacy. And from his perspective, it explains why they'd want to silence him.
And he claims they're doing that by basically freezing him out of the system, creating a situation where he was compelled to sell these vehicles.
He lists two very specific things that forced the sales.
Yeah.
What were they?
Okay, first, he says insurance companies just all of a sudden stopped doing business with him, which is a huge problem because...
No insurance, you can't legally drive the car.
Right. It makes the asset totally useless. And second, he claimed that certain police officers were flat out refusing to issue certificates of fitness for his vehicles.
And for anyone listening who might not know, that's basically a mandatory inspection, right? permit to be on the road.
It is. It's the government saying your car is safe and roadworthy. So if the police are too scared of government retaliation to issue that permit and you have no insurance?
The vehicles are completely immobilized. You can't use them. You can't do anything with them.
Exactly. So his story is these weren't voluntary sales to make a quick buck. This was him being forced to get rid of assets. He was being systematically prevented from even using.
A financial chokehold.
That's the picture he's painting. And he even gets ahead of another potential attack, saying his lawyer advised him there's no law in Guyana against owning bulletproof vehicles.
So he's anticipating they might try to make a big deal about some of the cars having security features.
Mm-hmm. And it all culminates in this very public plea to the head of the GRA, asking him to step in and stop the political weaponization of the tax authority.
Okay. So that's a very comprehensive narrative from Mohamed, a story of persecution and corruption.
It is. But now we have to pivot, because the Attorney General's response, it just completely changes the frame of reference.
Nandlall doesn't buy the victimhood story for a second.
Not at all.
Yeah.
He refers to Mohamed not as a victim, but as a fugitive offender who's trying to escape the consequences of his actions.
And this is where the big external factor comes in.
Yes. The U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC.
OFAC. And they've had sanctions against the Mohammeds and their businesses since June 2024. This context is absolutely critical.
Foundational. And the pressure was only getting worse. The sources confirm that just weeks before these vehicle sales, on October 2nd, 2025, Mohamed and his father were indicted by a grand jury in the United States.
Wow. So what does being sanctioned by OFAC actually mean in practical terms?
It means you're basically radioactive in the financial world. It prohibits the Mohammeds from doing business with any U.S. persons or banks. But the really scary part, especially for the Guyanese economy, is that any other entity...
Like a local Guyanese bank or insurance company?
Exactly. Any of them could face severe consequences just for doing business with the Mohammeds.
So let's pause there, because that's the key detail, isn't it? When the AG talks about severe consequences, what are we talking about for, say, an insurance company in Guyana?
We're talking about secondary sanctions. Basically, if that Guyanese company keeps dealing with a sanctioned person, they risk being cut off from the entire U.S. financial system. They could lose their ability to transact in U.S. dollars.
Which, for any international business,
yeah,
that's a death sentence.
it's an existential threat. So the AG's argument is, how can you blame the government if these private companies are making a business decision to protect themselves?
Mohamed calls it persecution, but the AG calls it justifiable self-preservation.
He essentially dismisses it as Mohamed not getting how serious the situation is. He says Mohamed expects it to be business as usual, but the world has changed for him. The government is just watching the reality of global compliance play out.
It's a very powerful reframing of the whole situation.
And then the AG uses that context to justify what the GRA was doing locally. He points out that it was no secret that the Revenue Authority was already investigating the Mohammeds long before this car thing.
And these weren't small investigations. These were about alleged gold smuggling, evasion of billions of dollars in taxes.
Right, and also customs duties on imported vehicles. These are huge, long-running financial crime investigations.
So with all that going on, plus the OFAC sanctions, the government's position is that these assets were already under intense scrutiny.
To the point where the AG confirmed a block was lawfully imposed on the transfer of these vehicles. They were not supposed to be sold or transferred, period.
Okay, but they were sold. So this is where the two stories just crash into each other.
They do, because according to the Attorney General, despite that lawful block, the Mohammeds managed to corruptly have these vehicles transferred.
Corruptly?
Yeah.
That implies someone on the inside had to be involved. I mean, a lawful block in a government system isn't just a suggestion, right?
It should be a hard stop. To get around that would require, significant complicity. It speaks to how serious the AG's allegation is, that this wasn't a mistake. It was an active, fraudulent effort to beat the system.
And then he provides the one detail that just blows the whole thing wide open.
The smoking gun, from his perspective.
It connects this local dispute directly to international sanction evasion.
That's right. He names one of the people the cars were transferred to, a family member named Maxim Max Dmitriev.
And why is that name so significant?
Because, according to the AG, Dmitriev is specifically prohibited by the OFAC sanctions from doing any business with the Mohammeds.
Wait, so they allegedly transferred vehicles which were already legally blocked to a person who was specifically named as someone they were forbidden from transacting with under U.S. sanctions law.
That is the claim. It would mean this wasn't just about getting around a local tax block. It was a deliberate move to use a barred intermediary to skirt powerful international sanctions.
That's staggering. If that's true, it changes the entire case.
Yeah.
It's no longer just a Guyanese issue.
Not at all. And the AG concludes that as soon as the GRA figured out this fraudulent design, the Mohammeds immediately went into what he calls their characteristic victim mode, chanting the usual anthem of persecution.
So his final position is just: let the GRA and the police force do their work. The laws of Guyana have to be upheld.
And that brings us and you, the listener, back to this incredibly complex situation. You have two powerful and in their own way fact-based narratives.
On one side, you have Mohammed's very real restrictions. He lost his insurance. He couldn't get permits. He presents that as proof of a political campaign against him for exposing alleged corruption.
And on the other side, the government has this airtight explanation for why all of that happened. The massive, unavoidable pressure of the OFAC sanctions on top of their own long-standing local investigations.
It's this collision between a bitter local political fight and the just unstoppable force of international financial compliance.
So what does this all mean? I think it forces you to think about that gray area between targeting and compliance.
Yeah. I mean, when someone gets hit with these huge international sanctions and companies have to cut ties with them.
Which they do to protect themselves, to survive. It's just business.
Right. It's self-preservation. But at what point does that justifiable self-preservation start to look and feel exactly like a political persecution campaign?
Or even get weaponized as one. That's really the question here, isn't it? Where does one end and the other begin? And the truth about these 11 cars is somewhere in that murky water. That's something for you to continue to mull over.